Welcome to the first chapter of LBIRC's Information Without Borders. I'm Jonathan Solorzano, LBIRC's community organizer.
And I'm Miles Hazley, LBIRC's ESL coordinator.
Our organization has been advocating for immigrant rights since 2006 and continue to do so under this federal administration. If you have any questions about anything related to immigration, please feel free to message us and we will connect you with any resources you may need. Today's video will explore some of the details related to the criminalization of migration by the Trump administration and Donald Trump's executive order to reunite separated families.
Please keep in mind, this is not legal advice. We are not attorneys, and information presented in this video is based on our research of the current situation.
So Miles, what can you tell our audience about the criminalization of migration?
From what we have researched, prior to the zero tolerance policy notice issued by Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General of the United States, on April 11th, 2017, crossing the United States and Mexico border was a misdemeanor offense.
And was that for a first-time offender or a repeat offender?
So, before this policy change, first and repeat crossings were prosecuted as misdemeanors under U.S. law. However, this new policy change makes crossing the border into a felony or aggravated felony.
And what exactly is the significance of that change?
So, this change seems to have led to longer detention of migrants and the expansion of the prison system, which we have seen and continue to see under the Trump administration. But more than that, the memorandum directs U.S. attorney offices to discourage first-time offenders who still obtain misdemeanor charges under the new policy. So this language is problematic since it's so vague and it raises a lot of questions. How are migrants being discouraged? Is what we have seen with the separation of families part of this process? It seems to me that it is possible that the separation of families was part of discouraging attempted migrant entry and re-entry.
You mentioned that the separation of families ties into the current administration's zero tolerance policy. Can you talk more about the separation of families in light of the recent executive order? Aren't these families being reunited?
So, the executive order seems promising, and it does mandate that separated families be reunited. However, under the current law, this goal is contradictory. Unless the parents or guardians are out on bail, which on average costs $2,500, it can be very difficult to reunite families. So the reason for this is because under a settlement from the 1990s, the Flores settlement, protocol in the government was established for housing migrant minors. And what was beneficial and positive about this is that it mandates that the environment for these children needs to be much safer than those for adults. So unless parents are out on bail, it is illegal to place their children in prison with them, and vice versa. Parents could not be placed with their children.
And would changing the Flores settlement allow families to be reunited more easily?
So, the executive order does also contain a provision that calls on the District of California to revisit the Flores settlement. Revising the settlement could possibly make it easier to unite families, but it could come at the cost of the safety of minors or the creation of new detention facilities to house families. We should keep in mind that not all minors are accompanied, so a revision of the Flores settlement could also see unaccompanied minors imprisoned in adult facilities, which would put them at an enhanced or increased risk. What's more, minor migrant and family detention will probably continue to get worse since Jeff Sessions recently stated his intention to end asylum eligibility for victims of domestic and gang violence.
And how does that policy decision affect the detention of families and minors?
So, to claim asylum in the U.S., an asylum seeker needs to demonstrate a fear of persecution in the country they are fleeing from. These fears can be based on many grounds, such as religious or ethnic persecution. In the U.S., for the past 30 or 40 years, there's been a precedent to grant asylum to migrants fleeing gang and domestic violence, which currently is ignored by the Attorney General. This comes in the context of increased migration out of the countries of El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala due to endemic and high rates of violent crime and gang violence. So now these people fleeing violence for a better life are met at the U.S. border with intimidation and imprisonment, and potentially will be sent back to their country of origin. So this might seem really overwhelming and cause for despair, but there is a cause for hope as many different organizations and people across the country continue to fight for migrant and immigrant rights.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining us for the first chapter in Information Without Borders video series. Join us for chapter 2 in our series, ¿Por qué dejamos nuestros países? We will discuss in more detail why people are leaving their home countries. If you want more information about how to get involved, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and visit our page at lbirc.org, or you can leave us a comment in the comment section and we will get back to you. Thank you very much and see you next week.